Hi everybody at the Linux Foundation. My name is Lawrence Uragi and I am just about to submit a talk for ELC in Seattle in September 2021, and I don't have any recorded evidence of the previous conference talks that I've done. The one that I have done was at a build meetup which was associated to a BasilCon in 2019. It wasn't BasilCon itself, but it was in that same sort of space. It was in London in 2019, and it wasn't recorded. And in addition to that, though, I do have a wealth of experience in public speaking. I do quite a lot of talks internally at the company that I work for, which is CodeThink, and I have spoken in various public forums. So I think what I'm going to do is I will, in the application for my talk, I'll upload this video to YouTube, and I'll supply the link in the application for the talk, and I'll also supply the link for some slides, which is a presentation I've given quite recently. It was an internal presentation at CodeThink, but the topic is completely suitable for public consumption. It's actually about working in the open in a very general sense. And some of the benefits that come along with the open source development model. So yeah, I thought I would just have go through that as a very brief overview. I won't go through all the fine details. I just want to keep this video quite brief and light. Really, I just want to demonstrate that I do consider myself a pretty competent public speaker. You can see that I'm doing this with my hands. I really quite believe that body language is a really important aspect of how you communicate yourself and how you get across what you're trying to say, and really how you engage with the audience. It makes a huge difference if you just stand there talking into a mic, or rather using your hands like this and bringing people in. So yeah, without further ado, then I'll give a brief overview of some of the slides here. So the talk is titled "Sunlight is the best disinfectant. The benefits of working in the open." And I chose this phrase, "sunlight is the best disinfectant," because it's something I picked up off David A. Wheeler, who's quite well known, and I'd not heard it before when I first heard the phrase, of course. But it basically, to summarize it, it's about it. I think it was raised the first time in a sort of management guru book back in the early 90s, or maybe the early noughties actually. But it basically is summarized by, in public policy or management policies, transparency about the workings of an organization prevents corruption. And that's the official definition of it, so to speak. So I thought it was just this wonderful metaphor, really. Sunlight is the best disinfectant. If you start an endeavor with your cards completely on the table for everybody to see, then you start off in this manner where you've got absolutely nothing to hide, and you're completely accountable because you're completely transparent. So the mindset is, don't try to make sure that you can answer any questions down the line. Make sure that the questions are already answered by the fact that you're just open by your nature at the very beginning of the project. So the point I was trying to make here was that it's not always easy to do that if you're not used to it, but get into the mindset of being open by default, and it's kind of an important point later in the talk, because it's all about how that mindset becomes the norm rather than thinking about being open as an afterthought. One of the other slides on there was a very basic introduction to FOSS. I don't want to be crude about it and say that there are two camps or anything like that, but it was just a distinguisher between the free as in freedom, and that was this kind of ethos of what free software was and where the GPL license came from, and Richard Stallman's history, and then the open source development model, which of course Linus Torvalds pioneered with the Linux kernel project in the early 90s, and it was just wildly successful. So it's a very brief overview on that and some of the related literature that's out there. Next slide was just talking about the distributed nature of the team, especially in remote working and that kind of thing. and just the importance of making sure that everything is documented. Basically, it's this idea that you can't just think that your team of people working on your project with you is you and the 4 people sat on your bank of desks. The project team on an open source project is anybody who could possibly join the project from anywhere in the world at any time of the project's development for any reason. So you have to have everything documented and written down and in a permanent place on the ticketing system or a mailing list from day one. And it's summarized by, if it's not on the mailing list, it didn't happen. And in the end, you start to question why you would ever send somebody a message in private. Why would you not say it in public? And of course, there is a time when you can send people things in private. Of course there is. But you start to do it so little that you have to justify that. Because it's almost always better to make sure that your communication can be absorbed by the whole group involved, anyone invested in the project. And then there's a summary slide which just talks about how being open by default is now my absolute de facto policy. It does take some time to adjust to it, but the benefits are great. The reduced communication overheads are massive. It encourages buy-in from everyone on the project team, and it ensures full transparency. And also the development model, as we all know, more review of things equals a better quality end product, more robust. Linus's law, with enough eyeballs, all bugs are shallow. That says it all, right? So that is an overview, a very brief and unprepared flyby overview of some slides that I did, but I hope it's enough to make it clear that I'm capable of giving a talk at the conference. I'm capable of being clear and articulate, and I would really look forward to being selected. I think our submission about embedded testing has some fantastic content. Thank you very much for your time.